for being here today. My name is Katherine, and it is an honor to spend this time with you. First of all, kudos for taking some time for yourself, to learn about yourself, to better yourself. I'm certain that you're all very busy, and I think that it's important that we have this time of reflection. So good job showing up. We are going to start with a quick video, so have a pen and paper handy for some exercises that we're going to do right after, but for now, just sit back and watch this quick video.
Take your time and read each of them out loud.
Okay, just read them?
Just read them.
Okay. So the first one is, you are not doing enough.
Your mental health is not important. Just take care of everyone else.
You are a broken person that barely anyone can stand.
You'll never be anyone but just a mom.
You're too weak and emotional.
You don't give your children enough time and love.
Your weight embarrasses your kids, and you should have better style.
No one will want you if you ever have to date again with a body like that.
You were too hard on Flynn last night. You're going to scar her. She's just a kid.
Hi. Hello.
I'm Rebecca.
I'm
nice
Nikki.
to
Nice to meet you.
I'm Hannah.
I'm Kira. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
If you could read out loud one of your cards to Karen.
Okay. Mine says, you should have done more.
You can't be great at work or at home. You'll never be 100% at either. You'll always be mediocre.
My body is so ugly now that I've had a baby.
Oh, wow.
This is going to make me cry. Is that what you're trying to do?
Everybody will be better off without you.
Sometimes I think that too, honestly. Sometimes I think I could just get in my car and leave and it would just be so much better.
Yes.
They could just make it work without me.
How did that feel, reading your negative thoughts to another person?
I feel like it's one thing to write them down for yourself and to accept them yourself, but to have somebody else hear them is totally different.
Vulnerable, and like I want to say these things out loud to someone.
Yeah.
So that you can be like, you're crazy. And then be like, no, that's totally legit.
You know, when you hear someone else talking about all the things that they do, you know, we shouldn't be so hard on ourselves.
You're perfect. Perfect, just like you are.
Thank you.
Now, what would you like to do with those cards in your hand?
Oh, can I just rip them up now?
Should we rip them up?
Can I get rid of them forever?
Mine are really thick.
Let the universe have them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Okay, so it's okay if that video makes you emotional. It's a really emotional topic, isn't it? And for so many of us, we bounce through these busy lives of ours, and we never actually stop to think about how we really feel about ourselves, what we say to ourselves when no one is listening. So right now, I want to invite you to complete the same activity that the women and mothers in the video you just saw completed. So I want to invite you to write down the last terrible thing that you said about yourself. And if you are like most of the women that attend my workshops and seminars all over the world, I can almost guarantee you that you don't have to go back to yesterday to think of something cruel and terrible and cutthroat that you said about yourself. And the reason for writing it down is my therapist taught me this. I love therapy. Cannot recommend it enough. I think everybody should have a therapist. I don't know why it's taboo. It's ridiculous. But my therapist told me that if we want to start really addressing how we feel about ourselves, that it's imperative that these thoughts get from outside of ourselves. And that can come by writing it down, by saying it out loud, etc. And just because I wouldn't ask you to do something that I wasn't willing to do myself, I will show you. This is a page that I tore out of my journal from 8 years ago. And again, my therapist asked me to write down the last terrible thing I said to myself. And it says, "You are a poor excuse for a strong woman." You are a poor excuse for a strong woman. So 8 years ago, this is what I said about myself. This is what I thought about myself. And we'll pull up now quotes from other women all around the world who were brave enough to share the last terrible thing that they said about themselves. And as you can see, it's cruel, it's cutthroat, it's ugly. I have hundreds of examples right here from workshops revealing the last terrible thing that women said to themselves. Why do you even get out of bed? It's all your fault and you can't fix it. You are ugly. You have no idea what you're doing. So right now, if you are so inclined and so brave, I invite you to put in the chat the last terrible thing that you said to yourself. Because again, this is part of the exercise of getting these thoughts and feelings from outside of the inside of you. So put it in the chat. Own it. This is what you think about yourself. This is what you feel about yourself. And this can be a really great step towards making change and towards slaying what I refer to as our dragon of self-doubt. And again, seeing it in your own handwriting makes it unavoidable, right? I can't deny that this is how I felt about myself at one time because it's my own handwriting. So maybe you'll have to do this 10 or 15 times a day to write down the last terrible thing. But whatever it takes to make sure that you understand and comprehend how you really feel about yourself. So please, again, put your thoughts in the chat. It can be very hard, but very rewarding to do that. And as you're doing that, I just want to share that every time I hear women and mothers reveal the last terrible thing they said to themselves, it reminds me all over again that as mothers, we're not at war with other mothers, we're at war with ourselves. And that's where the war is. That's where the battle is. That's where the fight is. And the media loves to pass it off like mothers are at war with other mothers, right? Breastfeeding versus bottle feeding, working versus stay at home, what have you. But the truth is that's not where the war is. And if we all believed in ourselves more, loved ourselves more, we wouldn't care what other people do. We wouldn't have these external mommy wars if we didn't have them inside of us first. So I'm on a mission to change this, to rid women around the world from, again, what I refer to as your dragon of self-doubt. And the reason that I'm on this mission is because for 20 years of my life, from age 15 to 35, I lived with a dragon of self-doubt that chewed up everything I did wrong, nothing I did right, and spit it back in my face and said crap like this to me all day, every day. And you know what? No matter what I accomplished on the outside, it was never enough. I was always running, always chasing, always exhausted. And no matter what trappings of success I accumulated externally, there wasn't enough love inside of me. And so that's how I lived for 2 decades. And so I know where you are. I know how painful it is. But I'm also living proof that dragons can be slayed. I'm not a magician. I didn't wave a magic wand and all of a sudden turn my self-doubt into self-compassion. I did the hard work and the homework through lots of therapy, lots of self-help books, lots of Oprah episodes, and lots of red wine. And that's how I learned to love myself. And so I want to share some tips and tricks that I learned along the way. They're all included in my book, Slay Like a Mother, but we'll just hit some of the highlights today, and then the book can be a great guide for you to go back to. How did I end up slaying this dragon of self-doubt? Well, what ended up happening was I am a researcher by trade, and as part of my job as the CEO of the Mom Complex, it's a consulting company, I was tasked with studying women and mothers all around the world as part of my research. And the research that I did with mothers from 17 different countries around the world really changed my life. And so I want to share with you a couple of the insights that came out of that research, and I think it will help you feel like you're less alone. Because if you're anything like I used to be, I often walked around this planet thinking that I was pathetic and everybody else was perfect. And learning that other mothers didn't think that they were perfect was pretty eye-opening to me. So let me share some of this research. As I mentioned, we studied mothers in 17 countries around the world, and the goal of the research was to uncover the one emotion that we all have in common as mothers. So again, forget the mommy wars, forget the infighting that the media loves to write about. What do we actually all have in common? What's the tie that binds us all together? And my research revealed that the number one emotion that we all have in common as mothers is self-doubt. In other words, I doubt whether I'm doing a good job at the most important job in the world, but more importantly, I doubt whether I can say anything when I feel like I'm doing a bad job. Because in all 17 countries, we witnessed what I call the mask of motherhood. And this mask that we all put on and say, I'm fine, when everything's not fine. And that is stemming from this self-doubt. It's stemming from this dragon of self-doubt. So when I learned that mothers of all backgrounds, socioeconomic status, etc., were struggling with self-doubt, it helped me feel a lot less alone, and I hope it helps you feel that way too. The second piece of research that I want to share with you is how prevalent self-doubt is, and this is particularly within the United States. My research shows that 9 out of 10 women in the U.S. are living with a daily sense of self-doubt. So I doubt whether I'm buying the right thing for my kids. I doubt whether I'm making the right decisions. I doubt whether I'm eating the right food, right? Plenty of doubts to just keep those gerbils turning in our minds, or those dragons, I should say. And so, again, you're not alone if you experience self-doubt, but more interestingly, from my research, we found that 75% of the time, a woman's self-doubt, her dragon of self-doubt, is born during or before adolescence. In other words, during your teenage years or before is most likely when you started to feel self-doubt. And there's a chapter in the book that'll help you really identify when and how your dragon of self-doubt was born, because I do think it's important to know and understand who made you feel like you're not worthy, who told you or implied that you weren't good enough, smart enough, thin enough, tough enough. And just know that dragons of self-doubt can be born from terrible and horrific situations like abuse and neglect, but they can also come from a sleight of hand, from someone that made fun of you when you were in the 3rd grade, from a boyfriend or girlfriend breaking up with you when you were a teenager. It can come from almost anywhere, but just know that it can come from both big events in your life, but also pretty minor events in our lives can set off this dragon of self-doubt, which again, if it's beginning when you're a teenager, most likely, or younger, that tells us that becoming a mother doesn't give birth to your dragon. It's very likely that you've had a dragon of self-doubt inside of you for the majority of your life. And then if you happen to be a mother, it just gives you 150 new reasons to think that you suck every day. And so it just builds on that dragon. It gives it fire, fuel for the fire. And again, if you're not a mother, all of this applies as well, because self-doubt is born so young inside of women. The next piece of research I want to reveal is what I refer to as the perfect mom paradox. And here's the way it works. If you are a mother, when you first become a mother, your expectations are really high, right? I'm going to make my own baby food, cloth diapers only, they're never going to skin their knee, all of these expectations. Luckily, over time, your expectations come down, right? And most of us would say that if our children are alive, at the end of the day, that we're putting that in the win column. At the same time, when you first become a mother, your experience is zero, right? You have no idea what you're doing. But of course, over time, your experience increases. But that first gap that's on the left-hand side of this chart, the difference between your expectations and your experience, is a really interesting phenomenon. And if you're familiar with Eckhart Tolle, he is a mindfulness guru. He wrote The Power of Now, among many other amazing books. And Eckhart Tolle would actually describe this dynamic as the definition of human suffering, meaning when the expectations that you have for your life exceed your ability to pull off those expectations, then you suffer. And so this means that there's a lot of suffering inside of mothers in the US and all around the world, because our expectations exceed our ability to achieve those expectations. Now, the other side of this coin is that the perfect mom paradox, the good news is, I should say, is that you do move to the right-hand side of this chart, where eventually your experience outweighs your expectations, and that side of the chart feels a whole lot better, right? But unfortunately, the perfect mom paradox comes back over and over and over again. Every time as a mother, you are forced to deal with a situation that you don't know how to deal with. So for example, the bottom side of this chart, you could get pretty good at being a mother to 2 young kids, and you can figure out how to put them in the grocery cart, get in and out of the store without it, without you completely losing your mind, and you're like, okay, I'm winning. But then your kids start going to school, and there are spirit weeks and room parents and teacher appreciation and potluck dinners and all the other the spirit weeks and the twin days. It's always killed me. I'm like, oh my gosh, who is my child going to dress up like? And all the coordination that goes into that is enough to break somebody. So the point is, then your kids go to school and you're faced with things you don't know how to deal with. And then your kids become teenagers. So how many of you have teenagers or ever have had teenagers? Many of you. And I know that you know that having a teenager and raising a teenager has nothing in common with raising a 2-year-old. They're not the same beast. They're not the same entity. And the lessons that you learn from raising a 2-year-old, unfortunately, do not apply for a teenager. At the same time, the top side of this chart, my mother is still a mother, but she doesn't have all of the answers even now. So for example, when my husband and I were going through infertility and had a hard time getting pregnant, I'm going to my mother at the time, I'm crying on her shoulder, and she says, can I write you a check for $200? And I said, yes, I will take your $200. It is a lot more expensive than that, but thank you. But my point is, she didn't know what to say. She didn't know what to do because she had never had a child before. They couldn't have a baby. They couldn't get pregnant. And so my point here is that you are never going to have this operation all figured out. So we have to stop setting the expectation that after I've been a mother for X number of years, I'm going to be perfect at it. So for example, my oldest child is 13 years old, my daughter. And yes, I have been a mother for 13 years. That is not debatable. But I've only been a mother to a 13-year-old for a matter of days. And that makes me a rookie. And that means that I've never raised teenagers before, and I don't know what I'm doing. And so I want you to think of these things in your life that are new and that are challenging as an opportunity to recognize your status as a rookie. And so instead of saying, come on, Catherine, you've been a mother for 13 years, get your act together, what's wrong with you? That's not what you say. You say, you've been a mother for 13 years, you've been dealing with a 13-year-old for a matter of days. Of course, it's not perfect. Of course, you're going to make mistakes. And that's the time that you need to give yourself some grace. The next piece of research that I want to share with you is detailed pretty in a whole chapter, and it's the difference between struggling versus suffering. So the way I describe it in the book is that your struggles in life are brought on by the external circumstances in your life. So figuring out what to feed your family every day of the week, going through a cancer diagnosis, getting divorced, trying to go for a promotion, at work, whatever it is. These are the struggles in your life. A child that has ADHD, these are struggles. And they're never going to go away. So that's another really realistic expectation that you can have, is that you're never going to get out of the struggles of life. They're part of the human existence. But we dip down below that line into suffering when we yell at ourselves for having these struggles in the first place, or we beat ourselves up for not handling them better, right? Come on, Catherine, do better, be better, get up to speed. And that's a dangerous place to be. And below that line is where your dragon of self-doubt lives and breathes. And so what I want you to know is that the goal, your goal as a human being, should be to struggle without suffering. So if you're struggling, you win. Welcome to humanity. You're always going to struggle. But we don't have to suffer, because the truth is, and this can be hard to hear, if you are suffering, it means you're suffering at your own hand. Meaning, as Eleanor Roosevelt once said, no one can make you feel bad about yourself without your permission. So if we can just live in the land of struggles and admit our struggles and admit that we're not perfect, say that stuff out loud, it's going to prevent you from dipping down into the land of suffering and believing that you should always be better, do better, etc. And you can just get on with the struggling, which will actually feel like a whole lot of relief if you're not suffering and you're just struggling. So what I want you to do is take out a pen or a pencil, and I would like for you to think about and write down 3 things that are new to you in your life right now, in this season of your life. So it doesn't have to be your life in general or your life forever, but what are 3 things that are new to you in your life right now? It could be you just had a second child or a third child, or you're going through a divorce, or living through a global pandemic and figuring out homeschool. Whatever it is, just write down 3 things that are new in this season of your life. And again, I invite you right now to put them in the chat so that other women, other mothers, other attendees can also begin to see that we're always constantly going through new challenges, facing new obstacles, etc. And so, again, go ahead and put those in the chat, the 3 things that are new to you in this season of your life. And these are the 3 areas that you want to think about and be conscious about giving yourself more grace. And I'm going to teach you a little trick for doing that. So when I'm going through something new or different that is happening in my life, I write on a Post-it note, I expect this to be hard. And I put it either on my computer screen or maybe in my car or on my bathroom mirror at home when I'm getting ready. And it is a wonderful reminder that when something is inevitably hard because it's new, I look at this Post-it note and I go, oh yeah, that's right, it's supposed to be hard. Instead of saying, wow, this new situation is really hard for me, therefore I must suck. Because that's the leap that we usually take as women and mothers. We say, this is hard, therefore I'm a loser. And that's not what we want to have happen. We need a reminder for you to see and remember that it's new. And however long you need to keep it up, keep it up. And when you need a new one, get a new one. But these 3 areas of your life that are new in this season, they might pass, they likely will pass, but many of us need that reminder, and this will keep your dragon's voice not completely muted, but just keep it out of your face so much. And on that note, I wanted to tell a quick story about the difference that I see in my research between men and women. And I am generalizing here, but from the men and women that I have studied, and I have collected all of these cards with the terrible things that we say to ourselves, what I find about negative self-talk is that when men report their own negative self-talk, it tends to be critical. Okay, so do better next time, buddy. It tends to be critical. The difference with women, however, is that the rhetoric moves from critical to cruel, right? And if you were brave enough to put the last terrible thing that you said to yourself in the chat, or you have it handy in front of you, you can see that this is pretty cruel. You were a poor excuse for a strong woman. And so there's so much that we can learn from men. And that can also be a goal of yours. Have the negative self-talk in your head. How can you help it be critical instead of cruel? So I will give you an example in my own life. So I often say that, you know, you're never going to get the negative voice in your head to completely go away. It's there for a reason. It's there to help you. But you can teach it some manners. And I'll give you an example. So I am a bike rider. I like to ride my bike out on the road. I would usually say a road bike, but it makes it sound like I'm a fancy cyclist, and I'm not. I just have like a regular bike that I like to ride around. And so not too long ago, I was on my bike, and I finished up a ride, and I was resting my hands on the top of my backside after the ride, kind of catching my breath, stretching, and I grabbed what immediately felt like 2 complete handfuls of cellulite. And so the negative voice in my head, because old habits die hard, the negative voice in my head immediately said, oh my gosh, what must that look like? And I start thinking, oh my gosh, can everybody else see my cellulite? This is so embarrassing. So what I want you to take away is that first and foremost, I heard the voice in my head. And awareness of this voice is 3/4 of the battle, because you probably don't even hear it, right? It's just yelling at you all day. So if you hear it, A+. So first of all, I heard the voice say, what must that look like? And so I corrected the voice in my head, and I said, what this looks like is that I got my rear end out of bed and I put it on a bike. That's what this looks like. So that's an example of how you can hear the voice, you can hear that dragon inside of your head, but you don't have to listen to it. Just because you hear it doesn't mean that you have to listen to it. And you have all the power, all the justification in the world to teach that voice in your head some manners. And you can have the last word by saying what this looks like is exercise. And so I invite you to do that. If you have to do it 20, 50 times a day, it's okay. Okay, so excuses be gone. I want to take a second before we go any further to share with you the two most common excuses that I hear from women all around the world for why you can't take care of yourself, why you can't read a self-help book, why you can't make yourself a priority. So the first excuse that I hear pretty regularly is, I don't have enough time, right? Your schedule's packed. You're caring for your children, a partner, your own parents, a global pandemic, etc. There's no time for you. And to that, I would invite you to look at the pictures on the screen. And all of these individuals are friends and family members who I love dearly. And the one thing that at least one person from each one of these photos has in common is that they are dead. And so when you say, I don't have enough time to take care of myself, it's not technically true. These people don't have the time to take care of themselves in the same way that any loved ones or family members that you have lost no longer have time to take care of themselves. So instead of saying, I don't have time to take care of myself, I would invite you to reframe that and say, I'm not making time to take care of myself. Because the truth is, if you woke up this morning, if you are breathing right now, it means that you do have time to take care of yourself. We just have to help you make better choices so that you can make that a priority. So the second excuse is it's selfish, right? It's selfish to take care of myself. It's selfish to put myself above other people, before other people, etc. And I also want to get that thought out of your head by showing you a chart from the book, these two trees. And the tree on the left shows how I felt when I was living with my dragon of self-doubt. The nutrients that were flowing into my soul by way of the things I was saying to myself sounded a lot like, you're not good enough, your best is never good enough, you suck, etc. And when that's happening, you tend to feel pretty weak and hollow on the outside. And that's exactly how I felt, and it may be how you feel right now as well. But what happens is, if you can change that dialogue, if you can slay this dragon of self-doubt and begin to say to yourself things like, I'm doing the best that I can, my best is good enough, I'm worthy of this, etc., then your metaphorical tree is thicker, it's more robust, it's a heck of a lot stronger. And so I hope you can see here how it's not selfish, because the truth is you cannot give away what you do not have inside. And so the more you give yourself, the more you will be able to give to others as well. And if you were to ask, excuse me, if you were to ask anyone in my life, my parents, my children, my brother, my coworkers, they would tell you that I am a better mother, a better sister, a better daughter, a better employee because I took this time for myself. So I have more to give away now versus less, and that's such a better place to be, such a better place to live. So The excuses we can move away from are, I don't have enough time and it's selfish. What is the end game here? What are we working towards ultimately by, working our way through this book? And to gain some perspective, I often interview older mothers that are in their 80s or 90s, because nobody has perspective like a human being that's been alive for almost a century in terms of what really matters in our life. And so I want to share a quote with you from an 85-year-old mother named Nancy. And I asked Nancy, I said, Nancy, what advice would you give to stressed out, overwhelmed women and mothers who are trying their best and just never feel good enough? And her advice is right here, and it says that just put your head down. Do the best that you can and forget about what anybody else thinks. And the beauty of Nancy's wisdom is, and I think we all intuitively know this, but we forget, if we are lucky enough, blessed enough to live to be Nancy's age, if we make it to 85, we're all gonna say what Nancy says. We're all gonna say the crap I was so worried about didn't really matter. And so my goal with this book, with this movement, is to just help you get to where Nancy is sooner. Let's not wait until we're 85 to get there. Let's learn at 55. I learned at 35. Let's help our daughters get there at 15 so that we can rid ourselves of all of this negative self-talk, all the drama that comes along with that, and we can live a life that's filled with more inner peace and less chaos. And as I mentioned earlier, I am living proof that this can be done, that dragons of self-doubt can be slayed, and women all over the world, as a result of this movement, are learning how to slay their dragon of self-doubt. And because people often ask me, what's it like on the other side? What's it like to live a life without a dragon of self-doubt inside of you? I thought I would let you hear from a handful of other women who have slayed their dragons of self-doubt and what life looks like for them.
Life without a dragon of self-doubt feels incredible.
Life without a dragon of self-doubt is, it's so freeing.
Life without a dragon of self-doubt is liberating.
It was an awakening for me.
You get to live life free of other people's opinions, free of the weight of your own self-doubt.
I feel empowered and lighter and freer and kind of more in charge of myself.
When I realize that I'm okay with all the hiccups and problems and things that I think I face in my life, I'm really okay, because I only have to be okay to me.
I have given myself permission to be me.
I invest in myself because I am worth it. I know who I am, what I am, and what I have to offer.
It was literally like taking a mask off and finally feeling more in control of me, more grounded, more centered.
I see my true self.
There are going to be days where I still get into it, and then there are going to be days where I'm able to continue the practice of slaying.
But releasing that dragon, releasing those feelings, allowed me to live the most freeing life I've ever lived.
So as you can see, it's a slightly different experience for each one of those women, but you can just feel the power and the freedom that comes as a result of slaying your dragon of self-doubt. And the way that I often describe it in my own life is I often say that I still have lots of chaos around me, right? Lots of struggles that pop up in my life. It's only natural. But what I have learned is that dealing with the chaos around you becomes light years easier when you're not also dealing with the chaos inside of you. So again, if we can end this war within, if we can slay this dragon and chaos inside of us, it saves our energy to fight the battles that are around us with more energy, with more enthusiasm, and a whole lot less exhaustion. So, how do we start slaying right away? What I want to leave you with are 3 tips that you can put into practice. We've already been talking about some of them, but what can you do right away to begin chipping away at this dragon of self-doubt? So the first way we talked about, and that is to write down 3 things that are new to you in this season of your life. Keep that list handy, update it when new things come on, take the old things off, put new things, and keep that post-it note handy within those 3 areas of your life that you expect them to be hard, because remember that when you're a rookie, rookies don't get things right the first time. The second tip for slaying your dragon of self-doubt is to put yourself on your calendar. So our worlds all revolve around our calendars, right? If it's not on your calendar, it's not even real. It might as well not exist, right? But what happens as women and mothers is we allow all the other stuff to clutter our calendars before we can put ourselves on there. So what I invite you to do is fast forward 3 or 4 weeks from now, because 3 or 4 weeks from now on your calendar, it's not full. There's a lot more real estate in the future than there is tomorrow. So fast forward 3 or 4 weeks and put 2 reoccurring meetings each week for something that's going to fill you up. It could be a yoga class you want to take every Tuesday morning. It could be a walk you want to take every Thursday night with your girlfriends. It could be drinking wine with your girlfriends. It doesn't have to be healthy. It has to be for you. And the point of making it a reoccurring meeting, it's every other Wednesday, it's every Tuesday, is that you will be built into your calendar for the rest of the year with very little effort, right? Because it takes a lot of effort, and maybe even more importantly, it takes a lot of courage to put yourself on your calendar. So just do it once, just do it twice, and do it as reoccurring meetings so that you're not constantly having to muster up the courage to believe that you're worthy of this time. Because what I want you to know is that if there's not enough me time on your calendar right now, then it means that you believe that other people deserve your time more than you do. That's what you believe. That other people are more worthy. Your partner, your children, the school teacher, the cashier at Trader Joe's. That they are all more worthy of your time and attention than you are. So ultimately, once you slay this dragon of self-doubt, it'll be a lot easier to put yourself on your calendar because you will know that you are worth it. But just remember that if you're not there, that's very likely why. We often say as women, oh, I have such a hard time saying no to other people. And that's not actually the truth. The truth is you don't have a hard time saying no to other people. You have a hard time saying yes to yourself. And by putting those 2 reoccurring meetings on your calendar, you can start to say yes to yourself without a tremendous amount of effort. And the final thing that I want you to do in order to start slaying your dragon of self-doubt is write down the one battle right now that you're willing to lose. In this season of your life, not in your life in general, in this season of your life, what's a battle or 2 that you want to win? And then what's a battle that you're willing to lose? And I'll give you an example in my own life. So I have 2 children, and they happen to be in 2 different schools. And I'm blessed to be married to a very involved partner. And my husband does more at my son's school, and I do more at my daughter's school. And so I have decided that in this season of my life, I am willing to lose the battle of looking like a great mother at my son's school. Okay? And so when I go to my son's school, I feel like a loser, like a legitimate loser. But when I walk in, I say to myself, remember, Katherine, you said you were going to lose this battle. You said you were going to lose this battle. And this is what losing feels like, and it's uncomfortable. And it's another form of this exercise, the Post-it note, because what it reminds me is that I'm a loser because I said I was going to be a loser, right? I've decided I can't win everything. I can't be at 2 different schools at one time. So I'm willing to lose this battle. And it just gives me more peace in the moment that it's okay to lose that battle. Instead of walking into that school and just automatically start triggering my dragon of self-doubt, reminding me of how much I suck. So those are 3 things that you can start doing right away to slay this dragon of self-doubt. And in the book, there are 7 entire chapters on ways you're feeding your dragon of self-doubt and how to stop, but these will get you started right away. And then even before then, in the very immediate term, there's 2 ways that you can stay in touch and learn more about slaying. So one way is you can take a picture of the QR code here, and you can sign up for our bi-weekly Slay Like a Mother newsletters. And these newsletters will be delivered to your inbox every other Monday morning, and they are full of tips and tricks, how to slay, what to slay, how to start, examples from other women all around the world. And it can be really motivating on that Monday morning to get you in the right mindset. And then finally, you can also go to slaylikeamother.com and you can search for hundreds of slays that have been submitted by women and mothers just like you. And you'll find tips for slaying dinner time, finding more me time, slaying divorce, slaying homeschooling, a global pandemic. And the point is, how can we learn from what other women are doing and what they're slaying so that we don't have to conquer and master and take on all of these challenges alone? Because what I hope you've taken away from this is that you are not alone. Millions of women, millions of mothers feel exactly the same way that you do. And I promise you, it is possible, it can be done, and your life on the other side of this dragon will be so much richer, so much fuller, and finally so much calmer. So thank you for showing up today. Thank you for participating. Thank you for making the time for yourself. And I will just end by saying that the Dragon Slayer in me sees, honors, and respects the Dragon Slayer in you.